I still remember the day everything shattered. It was a Tuesday, a day like any other, or so I thought. I had just returned home from work, the sun setting behind our small suburban house, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch into the very fabric of my life. I was exhausted, looking forward to a quiet evening with my wife, Sarah. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. The house was too quiet. I called out for her, expecting her to come rushing down from the bedroom or the kitchen, but there was nothing. Just silence. My heart raced as I made my way to the living room where I found her phone lying on the coffee table. It buzzed, a message lighting up the screen. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Her personal trainer, Jake. I had heard his name before, fit, charming, everything I wasn't anymore. As I read the exchange, my stomach twisted into knots. The messages were flirtatious, laden with innuendos that made my blood boil. I felt a rush of adrenaline, a mix of anger and disbelief. I had to be wrong. Surely this was just harmless banter, right? But deep down, I knew better. I confronted her later that night, my voice shaking with a mixture of hurt and rage. "Sarah, are you cheating on me?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. But then her eyes fell to the floor, and that was all the answer I needed. The shock hit me like a tidal wave. I remember feeling dizzy, as if the ground beneath me had vanished. All those years together, the laughter, the dreams, and the plans we had made, it all felt like a cruel joke. I could hardly breathe as she tried to explain. She talked about feeling neglected, about how Jake made her feel alive, how he pushed her to be better. It was as if she was justifying a crime and I was the victim standing there, utterly powerless. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. But instead, I stood there, frozen, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't articulate. I had trusted her implicitly, and now that trust lay in ruins. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife ever could. It was an emotional wound that I knew would fester long after the confrontation ended. As she spoke, I could see her guilt morphing into anger. "You don't understand. You're always working, always tired. I needed someone who could motivate me." Her words felt like daggers, each one piercing my heart further. I had sacrificed so much for us, and yet here she was, blaming me for her infidelity. The night dragged on, filled with accusations, tears, and a cacophony of emotions that left us both exhausted. I had never seen her like this, defensive, desperate, and cold. She was a stranger standing before me, and I couldn't reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had betrayed me so cruelly. As she walked away, I felt the weight of despair settle upon my shoulders. Alone in that darkened room, I realized something fundamental had changed. The love I once felt was replaced by a tempest of anger and betrayal. I was left grappling with the reality that my wife had chosen someone else over me, and I had to decide how to respond to this seismic shift in my life. I didn't know then what I would do, but I knew one thing for sure: this wouldn't end here. The pain was too raw, too visceral. I was going to make her feel the consequences of her actions, whether she realized it or not. Sarah and I had always been the couple everyone envied. We met in college, both bright-eyed and full of dreams. I was studying business, and she was pursuing a degree in psychology. Our connection was instant, a spark that ignited a relationship filled with laughter, shared goals, and endless late-night conversations about our future. We were young, but we believed in our love, and we thought it would last forever. After college, we both landed decent jobs and life settled into a comfortable routine. We bought a small house, filled it with laughter and memories, and even adopted a golden retriever named Max. I remember the joy we felt when we brought him home. He was a bundle of energy, and we spent countless weekends playing fetch at the park. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. But as the years went by, the demands of work began to take their toll. I climbed the corporate ladder, often working late, traveling for business. I had dreams of providing for us, of building a future where we could live comfortably and enjoy life. But in my pursuit of success, I neglected the most important aspect of my life, my marriage. Sarah would often complain about my long hours, but I brushed it off, convinced that I was doing it for us. In hindsight, I see the signs now, subtle shifts in our dynamic. Sarah started spending more time at the gym, claiming she wanted to get fit and feel good about herself. At first, I supported her. I would encourage her to go, thinking it was a healthy outlet. But as she began to lose weight and gain confidence, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She became more distant, often glued to her phone, texting or scrolling through social media. I convinced myself it was just her newfound passion for fitness, but now I realize it was something far more sinister. Jake, her personal trainer, entered the picture like a whirlwind. I remember the first time she mentioned him. She spoke about how he was helping her achieve her fitness goals, pushing her to lift weights she never thought possible. At the time, I was proud of her determination. I even met him once when I dropped by the gym to surprise her. He was charming, fit, and had a way of making everyone around him feel important. I didn't think much of it then. After all, he was just a trainer, right? But as weeks turned into months, I began to sense an underlying tension. The late nights at the gym became more frequent, and she often returned home late, claiming they were working on special routines or that she had to stay for extra sessions. I should have questioned it more, but I was too wrapped up in my own world of deadlines and meetings. There were nights when I would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling an emptiness beside me where she should have been. I longed to reach out to bridge the growing chasm between us, but I often hesitated, unsure of how to breach the subject without sounding accusatory. I thought if I just worked harder and provided more, she would come back to me. Looking back, I realize how naive I was. I was so focused on my career and providing a comfortable life that I had lost sight of what truly mattered: communication, connection, and intimacy. Sarah had become a shadow of the woman I married, and I didn't even notice until it was too late. The betrayal cut deeper because I had failed her in so many ways. I had taken her for granted, believing that love alone could sustain us through the trials of life. I had allowed my ambition to overshadow my responsibility to nurture our relationship. And now, as I sat in the aftermath of her betrayal, I was left with the haunting realization that I had pushed her into the arms of another man. As days turned into weeks after the confrontation, I found myself lost in a haze of anger and regret. I was determined to confront this reality head-on, to not let her actions define our relationship without a fight. I had a new resolve, a burning desire to reclaim my life and my dignity. I needed to understand what had gone wrong and how I could turn the tables. The pain was still fresh, but I was beginning to feel the embers of a plan ignite within me. I would not be a passive victim in this story. I would make her understand the depth of her betrayal. The days following my discovery felt like a surreal blur, each moment stretching into an eternity. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal. I had never imagined that my life could be turned upside down so quickly, but the confrontation was inevitable. I needed answers, and I needed to confront Sarah about her actions. The night of the confrontation, I could feel the tension in the air as I prepared myself. I had spent the day packing around the house, rehearsing what I wanted to say, trying to keep my emotions in check. But deep down, I felt the storm brewing, ready to unleash itself the moment she walked through the door. When she finally came home, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. She had a weary look on her face, and I could see the moment she registered my expression. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, a silent storm brewing inside me. "Hey," she said, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "You're home early." "Yeah, we need to talk," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady, but it came out sharper than I intended. Her eyes widened and she took a tentative step into the living room. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, mustering the courage I needed. "I found your messages with Jake." The color drained from her face. "What? You shouldn't have read my texts." Her voice rose defensively and I could see the panic flicker in her eyes. "Shouldn't have. You're the one who decided to betray me." I shot back, the anger bubbling to the surface. "How long has this been going on, Sarah?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor, and I felt my heart sink further. "It's not what you think. I didn't mean for it to happen. We were just working out together." "Working out?" I scoffed, my voice dripping with disbelief. "This isn't just some gym buddy situation. You've been texting him like he's more than that. You crossed a line." Her voice trembled as she tried to defend herself. I felt lonely, okay? You were always working, and I was trying to find my own way to cope. I never wanted to hurt you. Lonely, I echoed, the bitterness in my throat threatening to choke me. You chose to sleep with someone else instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix our marriage. How could you do this to us? The tears began to flow down her cheeks, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to happen. Jake made me feel good about myself. I thought it was just fitness, but it turned into something more. Something more. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and painful. You didn't think about what that would do to me, to our life together. You just followed your feelings without a second thought. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words felt empty. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could keep it separate." "Separate," I repeated, incredulous. "You can't just compartmentalize infidelity. You think I'm just going to forgive you because you say you're sorry." I watched as she struggled to find the right words. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to therapy, talk to someone. I love you and I don't want to lose you." Her plea struck a chord within me, but I was too angry to let it show. "Love? You claim to love me while you're in bed with another man. That doesn't sound like love to me, Sarah." She stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. "Please, just give me a chance to explain. I was looking for validation and I found it in the wrong place. But I want to make it right. I want us to go back to how things were." The longing for the past surged within me, but alongside it was the realization that we could never go back. Trust had been shattered, and the very foundation of our relationship felt irreparably damaged. "You don't understand," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't just forget this. I can't pretend like everything is okay when it's not." The tension in the room was electric, a palpable mix of anger and sorrow. I could see her frustration boiling over, and for the first time I felt the full weight of the emotional chasm between us. "What do you want me to say?" she shouted, her voice rising in desperation. "I made a mistake. I want to fix it, but you have to meet me halfway. What I want is for you to understand the gravity of what you've done," I replied coldly. "I want you to feel the pain you've caused, to see the destruction of our life together. You need to understand that this isn't just a mistake. It's a betrayal that will haunt us forever." Her face crumbled as the reality of my words sank in. I could see that she was beginning to grasp the enormity of her actions, but I wasn't ready to show her mercy. I wanted her to feel the emotional turmoil that now consumed me. I needed her to understand that her choices had consequences, and I was determined to make her aware of that. As the night wore on, we exchanged words filled with anger, regret, and pain. It was a confrontation that would change everything, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a long and tumultuous journey ahead. I was filled with a sense of resolve. I would not be the victim in this story. I would make her understand the depths of her betrayal, and I would ensure she faced the consequences of her choices. The confrontation left me reeling, but it also sparked something deep within me, a burning desire for justice, for retribution. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I began to formulate a plan. The emotional turmoil had transformed into a cold, calculated resolve. I wanted Sarah to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the pain she had inflicted on me. I thought about everything that had led us here. My mind raced with images of her laughing with Jake, the way she had glowed with confidence while I was busy working. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal wash over me again. I needed her to realize what she had lost, and I needed her to understand that her actions had consequences far beyond just our relationship. I started by reflecting on my own emotions. I was hurt, yes, but I was also angry. I wanted to channel that anger into something productive, something that would not only serve as a punishment for her, but also give me a sense of empowerment. I wanted to reclaim my sense of self, which had been battered and bruised by her betrayal. I thought about how I could turn her healthy lifestyle into a nightmare. She had been so enamored with her fitness journey, so enamored with Jake's validation. Why not take that away from her? I envisioned sabotaging her workouts, her routines, and her newfound confidence. It was a twisted thought, but the idea of stripping her of the joy she had found in the gym became intoxicating. I began to outline my plan. First, I would subtly undermine her fitness goals. I knew she had signed up for a series of personal training sessions with Jake, and I intended to find a way to disrupt them. But I needed to be careful. I didn't want to draw suspicion too early. I would play the role of the supportive husband while quietly working behind the scenes to unravel her carefully constructed facade. I decided to start with small, seemingly innocent actions. I would casually mention how much I missed our time together, how I thought we should start cooking healthy meals at home instead of her relying solely on the gym. I would offer to join her for workouts, pretending to be supportive while subtly sabotaging her routines. I knew that if I could distract her enough, she would lose focus on her goals. Next, I would dig deeper into her relationship with Jake. I needed to find out more about him, to understand what made him so appealing to her. I recalled the day I met him, how charming he had been. I decided to do some digging on social media, see if there were any connections I could exploit. If I could find something incriminating about him, it could serve as leverage to pull Sarah back into reality. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my plan wasn't just about revenge. It was also about reclaiming my sense of agency. I had spent too long feeling like a victim, and now I wanted to take control of my narrative. I wanted Sarah to see that I wasn't just going to sit back and accept her betrayal. I was going to make her understand the repercussions of her actions. As the days passed, I put my plan into motion. I feigned interest in her workouts, asking questions about her sessions with Jake. I would nod along, playing the part of the supportive husband, but inside I was plotting my next move. I started cooking elaborate meals, filled with healthy ingredients, and invited her to join me. I wanted to create an environment where she felt guilty for neglecting me, where she would start to question her choices. I also began to shift my focus on social media. I set up a fake account and started following Jake, trying to gather information about him. I wanted to see if there were any red flags in his life that I could exploit. I scoured his posts, looking for anything that could serve as ammunition against him. It was a dirty game, but I was determined to play it. With each passing day, I felt a sense of power returning to me. I was no longer the passive husband, the victim of infidelity. I was taking control, and it felt exhilarating. I knew that my actions were morally ambiguous, but the hurt I felt justified my need for revenge. I wanted Sarah to understand that her decisions had consequences, and I was more than willing to make her face them. As I executed my plan, I could feel the tension building between us. I could see her confusion as she struggled to balance her workouts, her time with me, and her interactions with Jake. I hoped that the cracks in her facade would begin to show, that she would start to feel the weight of her choices. I wanted her to question whether her pursuit of fitness and validation was worth the damage it was causing to our marriage. I was deep in the throes of my revenge plan, and I knew there was no turning back. The emotional stakes were high, but I felt a sense of clarity in my purpose. I was ready to confront the consequences of Sarah's actions, and I was prepared to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. With my plan in motion, the atmosphere in our home shifted dramatically. I had taken on the role of the supportive husband, but beneath that facade lay a simmering desire for revenge. I was determined to make Sarah feel the consequences of her betrayal, and each day brought new opportunities to execute my plan. I started by accompanying her to the gym, pretending to take an interest in her fitness journey. I would ask questions about her workouts, feigning enthusiasm as I learned more about her sessions with Jake. I would watch her, taking note of the way she lit up when she talked about him. It was infuriating, but I kept my cool. I smiled, nodded, and encouraged her, all while plotting my next move. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, I decided to plant the seeds of doubt. "You know, I've been thinking." I began casually, stirring the pot of quinoa on the stove. "Maybe you should consider taking a break from the gym for a while. It might be good to focus on other aspects of your life." Her brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? I love the gym. It makes me feel better, and Jake is helping me reach my goals." "I get that," I replied, keeping my tone light. "But I miss spending time with you. It feels like the gym has become your whole life. Maybe a little balance would be good." She hesitated, her fork paused midair. "I thought you wanted me to be healthy. Isn't that what you always say?" Of course, but health is just physical. It's mental too. I want us to be happy together, and that means finding time for each other outside of the gym, I said, trying to sound sincere. I could see her processing my words, the wheels turning in her mind. I knew I had planted a seed of doubt, and the more I nudged her to reconsider her obsession with fitness, the more I hoped she would start to question her relationship with Jake. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to play my part, but I also ramped up my efforts to undermine her fitness goals. I would casually mention how tired she looked after her workouts, how I missed her energy, and how I felt like I was losing her to the gym. I wanted to create a sense of guilt, a realization that her choices were affecting our relationship. I also kept digging into Jake's life online, piecing together information that could serve as leverage. I discovered that he had a history of questionable behavior, flirtations with clients, rumors of inappropriate relationships. I saved every screenshot, every comment, every piece of evidence I could find. I wanted to be prepared for the moment when I could confront Sarah with the truth about the man she had chosen over me. One afternoon, I found myself scrolling through Instagram when I stumbled upon a post from Jake. He was at a bar, laughing with friends, and I noticed a familiar face in the background, one of Sarah's old friends. My heart raced as I realized this could be my opportunity. If I could connect the dots and expose Jake for who he really was, it might just shatter the illusion Sarah had built around him. I reached out to the friend, casually asking about her time with Jake. I feigned interest, but I was really fishing for information. After a few exchanges, she let slip that there had been rumors about Jake's behavior. He's a real charmer, but some of us have seen him get a little too friendly with clients. Just be careful, she advised. That was all I needed. I now had the ammunition to strike. I planned a dinner for just the two of us, a seemingly ordinary evening where I could drop the bombshell on her. I wanted to catch her off guard, to see the look on her face when the truth about Jake came crashing down. That night as we sat down to dinner, I watched her enjoy the meal I had prepared. She seemed relaxed, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I prepared to unleash the truth. "Sarah, can we talk about something serious?" I asked, trying to maintain my calm exterior. She looked at me, her fork paused mid-bite. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I've been doing some digging into Jake's past. I've heard some things that might change how you see him." Her expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "What do you mean?" "Let's just say that he's not the golden boy you think he is. There are rumors about him getting too close to clients, inappropriate behavior. I think you should be careful." I watched as her face paled, the color draining from her cheeks. "What? That doesn't sound like him. He's always been professional with me." "Has he?" I pressed, feeling the rush of adrenaline. "You really think he's just interested in helping you get fit, or is he more interested in you as a person, as a woman?" Her eyes widened, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. I don't know. He never gave me any reason to doubt him." "Maybe you should start asking questions," I said, my voice low and steady, "because I can't bear the thought of you getting hurt by someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart." The tension in the room was palpable, and I could see her internal struggle. I had planted the seeds of doubt, and now I wanted her to confront the reality of her choices. I wanted her to realize that she had put her trust in a man who could easily betray her, just as she had betrayed me. As dinner progressed, the conversation shifted, but the weight of my revelation lingered in the air. I could see the cracks forming in her confidence, the uncertainty creeping in. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction knowing that my plan was working, that I was beginning to make her question everything she had built. In the days that followed, I continued to sow discord. I would casually mention how I had seen Jake out with other women, how he seemed to thrive on attention. Each time I dropped these little truths, I could see her confidence falter, her resolve wavering. The more I chipped away at her certainty, the more I hoped she would start to see the reality of her situation. As my plan unfolded, I felt a sense of power returning to me. I was no longer the victim. I was the one in control, and I was determined to make Sarah face the consequences of her actions. But deep down, a part of me wrestled with the morality of my actions. Was I really helping her see the error of her ways, or was I simply indulging in a twisted game of revenge? I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the goal. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand the pain she had caused. The execution of my plan was in full swing, and I was ready for whatever came next. The days turned into weeks, and my plan continued to unfold. I had successfully sown enough doubt in Sarah's mind about Jake, and I could see the toll it was taking on her. She was more withdrawn, often lost in thought, and I could sense the guilt gnawing at her. Each time I saw her, I felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. I had wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, but I hadn't anticipated how much it would weigh on me, too. One evening, Sarah came home from the gym, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. I could tell something was off. She sat across from me at the dinner table, fidgeting with her napkin, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. I had orchestrated this entire situation, and now I was witnessing the fallout. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," I replied, my heart racing. I had prepared for this moment, but I didn't know what to expect. "I've been thinking about everything," she began, her voice trembling. "About Jake, about us. I don't want to lose you, but I feel so confused." I leaned in, feigning concern even as a small part of me relished the moment. "What are you confused about?" I thought I could separate my fitness journey from our relationship, she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. "But I see now how wrong I was. I've been so focused on myself that I neglected what really matters us. I don't want to be with Jake. I want to be with you." The admission hit me like a ton of bricks. I had wanted her to realize the consequences of her actions, but hearing her say it out loud made my heart ache. I had crafted this elaborate plan to make her suffer, yet here she was, vulnerable and remorseful. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice steady. "Why did you choose to betray me?" "I was looking for validation," she confessed, her voice cracking. "I thought I could find myself through fitness, through someone else's eyes, but I lost sight of what truly mattered. I didn't mean for it to happen, and I regret it every day." Her sincerity pierced through the walls I had built around my heart. I had wanted revenge, but now I found myself grappling with the reality of our situation. Could I forgive her? Did I even want to? The emotional turmoil that had propelled me into this revenge scheme now morphed into something more complex, an opportunity for healing or a chance to walk away. "I don't know if I can just forgive you," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Trust has been broken, and it's not something that can be easily repaired." "I understand," she replied, her voice filled with remorse. "But I want to try. I want to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes." The sincerity in her eyes tugged at my heartstrings, and I felt the anger that had fueled my actions begin to dissipate. I had wanted her to suffer, but now I was left with the choice of whether to engage in reconciliation or to sever ties completely. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions as we navigated our new reality. We attended couples therapy, where we confronted the underlying issues that had plagued our marriage. I found myself grappling with the aftermath of my plan. The guilt of my actions weighed heavily on me. I had sought revenge, but what I had really done was hurt the person I once loved deeply. Through therapy, we began to rebuild. We communicated more openly about our feelings, our fears, and our dreams. I learned to express my needs and frustrations without resorting to manipulation, while Sarah worked to regain my trust. It was a painful process, but I could feel the shift in our relationship. As time passed, we began to heal. I still felt the sting of betrayal, but I also saw the effort she was putting into our marriage. I realized that while revenge had given me a temporary sense of power, it ultimately left me feeling empty. The real victory lay in forgiveness and understanding, not in causing her pain. Eventually, I decided to let go of the anger that had consumed me. I learned that holding onto resentment only kept me trapped in a cycle of negativity. I wanted to move forward, to embrace the possibility of a renewed relationship rather than dwell on the past. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, I looked over at Sarah. She was laughing at something on TV, her eyes sparkling with life. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. We had both made mistakes, but we were willing to work through them together. I'm not going to pretend that everything is perfect, I said, my voice steady, but I think we can move forward if we both commit to it. I'm all in, she replied earnestly, reaching for my hand. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm here for the long haul. As I squeezed her hand, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead would be challenging and the scars of betrayal would take time to heal. But I was willing to try, and I hoped she was too. In the end, I had sought revenge, but I found something far more valuable: growth, understanding, and the possibility of a second chance. Our journey was far from over, but I was ready to face it together. We had both learned hard lessons about love, trust, and the complexities of relationships. And as we embarked on this new chapter, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future. The consequences of infidelity had shaped us, but they wouldn't define us. We were ready to rebuild, brick by brick, with a stronger foundation of trust and love. And in that moment, I knew it was worth it.